Welcome to Wisco Dice. This is your host, the ghost with the most, the one, the only, the Conzi, and I am joined by.
This is Justin, the Meeple's Phantom.
This is Suzanne, this evening's victim.
This is episode 99 of the Wisco Dice Tabletop Gaming Podcast. Today is October 26, 2022, and on today's episode, we are going to review Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. Of course, we'll also have an interview with Mark from Radical 8 Games, and we talk about the expansion that's coming to Kickstarter for Die of the Dead. Of course, then we're going to catch up on the games we have been playing, but first, I do have a quick announcement. Those of you in the Madison, Wisconsin area, I want to make sure that you know that on the last Friday of the month, Wisco Dice will be sponsoring board gaming at Misty Mountain Games from 6 to 9 p.m. So make sure if you're in the Madison, Wisconsin area, you come on down and see us. Play some games with your favorite hosts of this podcast, and who knows, we might even have a little swag for you before you walk out the door. So make sure you check it out. That's the last Friday of every month at Misty Mountain Games from 6 to 9 or 9:30 p.m. All right, with that said, let's get into the games we have been
playing.
Woo!
All right. Wow. So with that introduction, we have had a lot of fun with games this month. In Madison, Wisconsin, we had our big gaming convention called Gamehole Con this past weekend. And all three of us took a very active part in Gamehole Con. Conzi ran a number of games over the weekend, played in some. We all kind of talked to different publishers and other players there about their gaming experiences, what they enjoyed. I had a lot of fun talking with the publishers that we have interviewed on this show in the past and some new ones that hopefully you'll have the opportunity to meet on one of our future shows also. One of the games that all three of us participated in is called True Dungeon. For those of you who don't know what True Dungeon is, it is this giant production that are put on at several of the gaming conventions in the U.S. I don't know if it's international yet. It has a feel of an escape room, but there's a really nice story with it. Nice as in it's a well-developed story. Not always nice as in like fairies and gumballs and lollipops and whatnot. So in this, you have your choice between two different chapters in this saga that has been going on for several years, and you go through a series of about 7 rooms. In each room, you either have a puzzle to solve, or you are fighting a monster. So, and then along with this, each of the characters in your party, there can be up to 10 of you, plays a different type of person. So they're kind of themed on Dungeons and Dragons characters, or types of beings, character classes. Thank you, Justin. That's the word I was looking for. This year I played the Bard, which was a new one for me. I have been a paladin in the past. So you have these tokens that you use to build up your character, to build up your strength and your fortitude and all those other
your weapons,
levels,
your armor,
yes,
rings of their magical amulets, stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of trick out your character and be this character as you're going through in the different rooms. It's just a lot of fun to see people, like there's actors in all the rooms doing things. There's some animatronics, really cool scenery. And then on top of that, you are playing this giant life-size game as you go through there. It's a very immersive experience. Each of the runs that you go on takes about 2 hours. You have about 12 minutes in each room, and it's timed very precisely. Keep everyone moving through. And like I said, you can play with 1 to 10 players. It's just a lot of fun, and it's a nice teamwork building experience if that's something that you're into also. So I don't know if Conzi or Justin, if you have any other thoughts that you want to add about this game this adventure we went on.
I think the main thing is that I would say is if you enjoy role-playing games and you like escape rooms as well, you should definitely be doing this. It's an experience that you should have. The puzzles in the dungeon is one of my favorite things. They're usually very interactive and physical. Like one example is we had to work together to hold up this stone archway that we had to kind of build in one of the puzzle rooms, and we all had to be carefully balancing the pillars and the arch stones and stuff like that. And they just do a really good job at coming up with different puzzles. I've never seen a puzzle repeated or even really like similar to other puzzles. They're almost always unique. So yeah, if it sounds cool, definitely check it out. It's worth it. You can do it at GameholeCon, Gen Con if you're there, and I believe they do Origins as well. Those are the ones I know about.
If you go on their website, which is just truedungeon.com, it'll list all the different locations that they will be in 2023 even, and which chapters of this Odyssey will be at each one. So
I will say True Dungeon is a ton of fun, and I've been doing it, of the people in our group, I've been doing it as long as anyone. I will caution our audience a little bit. One, I hate puzzles. Puzzles are terrible. Worst part. Although I did enjoy, I will say I did enjoy the ball puzzle that we did this year. That you had to get this ball from like the bottom of this thing, and it had this little piece of like plastic on this square box. You're trying to get it up, and everybody's kind of hold the contraption. You can't touch the ball, and you got to kind of like roll the thing all the way up this thing that's like, I don't know, way up over your head.
Yeah. It's a lot more physical puzzle that you enjoy versus the trying to figure out the riddle.
I hate those
type puzzles.
Those are terrible. Unlike Justin, who loves those, I'm much more the combat room kind of guy. I want to slide that puck.
Yeah.
The trap, though, that I was getting to is that all of your items are represented by basically tokens that are poker chips. They have like the True Dungeon stuff on one side and like a sticker on the other side that tells you what it is and what it does. There are various rarities of these tokens, which means if you want the really good stuff that is more rare, you're either purchasing way more packs of tokens hoping to get lucky, or you start buying tokens on the aftermarket. And so that is the trap. There's a trap because what will happen if you get really into this is you can easily spend hundreds of dollars on individual tokens to get like a +2 to your attack roll. And for me, and for what I think the vast majority of people who do True Dungeon, it is, yes, getting good gear is fun and is part of the game, but it is the experience of going through the story and discovering these new elements and seeing the actors and seeing the sets and the animatronics. And so don't get sucked into the trap that is the tokens. Enjoy True Dungeon for what it presents and what it does, because that's the experience you're getting out of it. That's just my 2 cents. Everybody's different. Some people may like to really collect tokens, and that's fine. But I am not a millionaire that can spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on tokens so I can have the perfect character.
You also have a wife who would be very upset if you
Yes,
tried to do
trying to
that.
justify spending $100-ish for a new axe for my dwarf was definitely frowned upon. So, yes, it's a trap.
You had the option to buy a real
I think
axe
that's cooler on
instead.
the wall.
There you go.
Yep. All right. So, Justin, what other games have we been playing or have you been playing?
Yeah, I got besides True Dungeon, I played a fair number of different games while I was at Gamehole Con. The one I wanted to talk a little bit about is Cartographers. Cartographers is from local Madison Game Company, Thunderworks Games, and it plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. I think that is quite accurate. It's a pretty quick playing game, and it can play from 1 to 100 players all at the same time. And that's because it's a roll and write game, or flip and write in this case. Most of what you're doing in the game takes place on a single paper sheet that is a map of the kingdom that you're going to be exploring and building. Cartographers is, I think, a really good introduction to the roll and write, flip and write kind of genre. It's pretty easy to learn, plays quickly. I think it's satisfying to draw on your map and make it feel like a real fantasy map. The setting of the game is in the role player universe. So if you're familiar with that game, there's some definitely some familiar themes and arts and stuff like that. In the game, you're going to be drawing different terrain to build out this kingdom and this map that you have. The game takes place over 4 seasons: summer, spring, fall, and winter. Not in that order. And in each turn, you're going to draw a different type of terrain somewhere on your map. There will be a card flipped over to tell you what types of terrains you can choose from. So you might get a card that's you can either draw a forest or a village, and then you need to use a specific polyomino or Tetris shape and draw that somewhere on your map. So your map is a big grid of squares, and you're going to draw a little forest in each of these squares that matches this Tetris shape. And you work your way through the seasons, adding things more and more to your map. You know, the way that the game scores is that there are a number of Queen's Edict cards that act as scoring cards for the game. And each of those just shows you how you're going to get points for each of the different types of terrain. So, one example would be an edict that says you get 3 points for every section of rivers and farmland that you have on your map, as long as they're not touching each other. And so you kind of got to work with the cards that come up and your placement of things in your map to try to maximize your points on each of these edict cards. To win, you need to be the best at all the Queen's Edict cards and get the most you can out of them, and also collect gold from mines and the mountains that are on map at the start of the game. I think it's a great flip and write game. It's got a great fantasy theme. And then the other cool thing about it that is, I think, unique for a roll and write is there's a little bit of player interaction. There's a special type of card that'll come up once in a while that is an ambush card. And it'll be like a goblin or a bugbear or something. And what happens then is you actually have to pass your map to another player, and they get to draw that monster on your map somewhere in a place that's really going to mess you up. They try to put it in the most inconvenient space for you. And that's really fun to just like get to mess with someone else's map. So I really like that aspect of it as well. Not super common in roll and writes, I think. Yeah, cartographers. I really like that one. And if it's roll and writes or something you're looking into, I'd say give it a shot.
Cartographers is great. It is definitely my probably favorite roll and write game currently, or of that style of game. And I think the
Hmm.
big reason is I have not played a lot of roll and writes. It's definitely not a genre of games I'm super excited about. But in cartographers, when you start the game and you're making this map, by the time you're done, even if you don't win, you look at your map and you go, that place could actually exist. I could run a game in this, I could run a D&D game in this world, or I could see somebody adventuring in this world, or and encountering, oh, hey, here's where the bugbears were, and here's where the orcs were, and here's where there's this little town here next to a mountain and some forests and a river. And it all, like, the whole thing makes sense. it is very satisfying. You feel like you've crafted and created something that could be real, or that you might be able to use some other way. So hoping or waiting for the next game that Keith Thunderworks comes up with that takes these maps that we're creating and cartographers and takes them and makes it part of some other game like he did for Role Player Adventures and Role Player.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is a really nice, well-developed or flip and write game. I am not a huge fan of the flip and write games or roll and write. It's a lot of pressure to draw something that looks nice, and I'm not a drawer or I'm not an artist in that way. But this one with the card flipping mechanic and being in the role player universe, it really drew me in, and you get immersed in the theme of it more than other flip and write, roll and write games I've played before, where it seems you could put any theme on it as long as you have a pad of paper and a pencil. So, yes, definitely excited to keep playing this and see how it may grow in the coming years.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about a game that I got to play at GameholeCon that none of the other hosts here have gotten a chance to play, and that is Distilled. And if you remember back to episode 82, I actually interviewed Dave Beck, who is the creator of this game. So Distilled is a game for 1 to 5 players, I believe, from Paverson Games. This is their only title currently, although he just announced his second game that's going to be in the works. Playtime for this game is about 2 hours, I'd say. Of course, it's only based on the one play that I have, so we'll find out more when my copy actually shows up in hopefully January, February timeframe. So this game, man, I've been wanting to play this game forever, and I tried to get into a game slot at Gen Con and missed it, and then missed my opportunity to actually chat with Dave. So it was great chatting with Dave at GameholeCon as well. But in the game, basically, what happens? The premise of the game is you've inherited a distillery, and you've decided to reopen it and make a go at distilling alcohol, distilling liquors. The way the game works is you're going to purchase various cards from 4 different markets, basically. And those cards are going to include improvements such as rooms and additional workers that you can get that will enhance your distillery's capabilities. Item cards that will allow you to improve your bottling and barrel aging processes. And you'll find special ingredients that are really upgrades that have better revenue generation and potentially victory points. Ingredients that might lead to, from a liquor's perspective, might lead to better flavors or certain unique flavor characteristics that more expensive liquors on the market might have. And of course, finally, there are just the basic ingredients market, like basic yeasts and water and some basic fruits and whatnot, sugars, plant-based sugars, fruit-based sugars, and various other sugars that you can get. The one thing with the basic ingredients market, because there are cards there that are free, you can only go and purchase things from the basic ingredients market twice in a given round. So it gives you kind of a limit on all of these things that are very low cost in money to purchase, and that would give you a definite competitive advantage if you could just buy as many of them as you wanted. What I really like is you're going to basically, once you've purchased all of your ingredients for the round, you're going to take all of those ingredients and distill your alcohol. And to do that, you take all of the ingredients. You have to have at least a water, a sugar, and a yeast. But as long as you have those 3 ingredients, then you're going to take all the ingredients. You can have as many sugars, as many waters, as many yeasts as you want. You can go into the alcohol that you're trying to brew. So when you take all those cards that you're going to put in, and you may not want to put in certain sugars, like if you're trying to distill a gin, you don't want to use any plant-based sugars because you can't make a gin then if there's plant-based sugar left in your pot. And so once you have all your ingredients, you shuffle them all up, and then you take the top card off the pile and the bottom card off the stack, and put it in your storage area for the next round. The reason being is that when you're actually distilling alcohol, there is I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the brewer's cut or something like that, or distiller's cut, which is that the top part, the first whatever 10% and the last 10% are actually, you can't drink it. It's actually toxic. So those cuts, though, can be reused in the next batch, which is very interesting. So it's a really cool game mechanic that's actually emulating the actual distilling process. And when you do that, then you look at all the cards that you have left, and you match it up against the different types of liquor that can be made during the game you're playing, and that can be changed out from game to game and customized. Although the basic moonshine and vodkas are always basically in the game, and then every player has their own unique liquor that they can produce in a given game. So effectively, you can produce liquor 7 times because there's 7 rounds in the game. You have some additional options like barrel aging liquors, which can be fairly risky but huge points rewarding. So there's a lot of like really cool depth and mechanics and a lot of different ways to, I think, play the game. And one of the coolest ways I've seen to teach a game, although it feels really restrictive when you're doing it, and that is that they basically pre-prescribe the first turn to you, and every player is doing like something just a little bit, just enough different that it shows you all of the mechanics, but it then sets up that player to be able to then, if they follow the recommendations for future rounds, you're like, there's a point in about round 2, or for me in round 3, because I'm a little dense, where I went, oh, that's how it works, and then went and had a really great experience. No, I did not win, but I did come in second, which I felt pretty good about that, considering I was one of the only players on the table that did not try to go into any barrel aging. I was just making gin like crazy. So that is distilled. It is, I will say, it is a high. I can't recommend this game enough, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from Dave again and around the time when this thing is hitting retail, so that we can get you guys the details on how you can get a copy for yourselves.
Really looking forward to this game hitting our table here. So I'm glad you got a preview of it so you can teach us all.
Yeah, I think we got all of the cool gubbins for upgrades, the playmat, and all of that. But if we didn't, I'm gonna have to beg Dave so we can get all the good stuff, because it's the coins, the playmat, all of it. It's just gonna it all feels like it's needed to play this game. All right, so for all of the details and pictures of the games we've been playing, make sure you head over to wiscodice.com. That is wiscodice.com for all the links to these games that we discussed. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a moment to take a break, catch our breaths, and catch our interview with Mark from Radical 8 Games and find out what's coming next for Die of the Dead. All right, and we're back, and we've been joined by Mark from Radical 8 Games. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm doing really good in this cold British afternoon.
We've got a cold Wisconsin afternoon here, so not too much different. I think. I think there's snow a bit north of us actually right now, but unfortunately we're not seeing snow quite this early.
No.
Mark, thanks so much for joining. We've also got Suzanne here as part of the interview. I wanted to just go ahead and start off with, a big thank you for joining us today. And can you just tell us a little bit about Radical 8 Games? Who are you guys? Yeah. What kind of games do you do? What's the company look like?
Yeah, so Radical 8 Games is pretty much me, just publishing, doing some designing, developing, but actually publishing games from interesting designers. I would say in the UK, the last game we published, The Mask, was actually a Canadian designer that we We met at the UK Games Expo. But it's me. I work with some people who I get on board for different projects. I've got an artist used for the last few projects, Rusen Bell from Mexico. We used her for Die of the Dead, and as well as a lot of play testers and fellow developers in the north of the UK. But primarily, if you're ever talking to someone from Radical 8 Games, you're going to be talking to me usually.
That's cool. And UK Games Expo is definitely one of those events that are on my high level of to-do list to make sure that I'm a part of at some point in the next few years.
It's fantastic. I love it. I mean, I love all conventions, but obviously the ones just down the road. There's another one called Aircon, which is literally just down the road from me, which is superb. But yeah, UK Games Expos, if you can get to them, do so.
Well, that's something, like Conesy said, is definitely on our bucket list of conventions to go to. So we're looking forward to making it over your way one of these days, or one of these years, I guess. You mentioned some of the games that you've put out already. Are there any other games that are currently in development or that you're working on for Radical 8 Games?
So the focus at the moment, we're doing the shipping for Damask, which was a game all about making these silk patterns. We crowdfunded that earlier this year. We're focusing on the shipping for that, and also obviously on the Die of the Dead expansion, which we're launching. After that, there's a few design ideas we're working with, but our focus, those are kind of putting on the back burner for now, just making sure everything else that we're working on is good. So nothing as of yet. It's not quite a blank slate, but as close as it has been, I think, for a while in terms of upcoming projects.
Okay, but there are some in the pipeline, it sounds like. So
oh yeah,
eventually...
there should be something. There's something very exciting, which I've made a prototype. It uses cogs. I love cogs in games, and I don't think there are enough games with cogs. You know that the children's toy where you put loads of cogs, you turn something, and something the other side of the table moves. I love that idea. So we've been toying a lot with that, and then getting some mechanics down with it. But then, like I say, just for now, I'm trying to push that in my mind, because there's a danger of losing focus and think, okay, let's just make sure everything else we're getting is perfect. But if you like cog games, then I think we're going to have a winner, hopefully, sometime next year.
Those were some of my favorite children's toys, so I'm excited.
Exactly.
Who didn't love a little mousetrap with all the little cogs that were turning that giant contraption?
Yep.
So you mentioned Die of the Dead and the expansion that's coming here shortly, and we know that's coming to crowdfunding here very soon for the expansion to that game. And it wouldn't do without mentioning Justin, who couldn't be here with us today from the show. He backed the original game when it came out. He gushes about the artwork. He loves it. It's a very one of his favorite games. What really was the inspiration behind Die of the Dead? How did that really come to be?
So it was at Aircon, UK Gaming Festival, where I met the designer James Allen, and he had a prototype, and I was helping to run a UK playtest area where people can playtest games. And his prototype, it had these caskets with these sugar skull motifs on them, and it just, you could tell it looked interesting. And there was a lot of work after that getting it developed, but that initial thing, everyone who walked past stopped and looked at it. And I was talking to him afterwards, and I said, this theme, Dia de Muertos, there's a game Skull, which I absolutely love. I think it's fantastic, but that doesn't really take the theme as far as it could do. And so after I talked to him about his game, and then I went back myself, I did a bit of research myself, and then I got in touch. I've got a friend from Mexico, and I also talked to a cultural consultant and basically said, look, could we incorporate this further without it coming off as being, two people from England, we don't want a cultural appropriation. I know it's kind of a thing that British people used to do, but it's not something we'd really want to take advantage of. We wanted to make sure it's respectful, because the theme was just, it was just something people wanted. It's something I really like. Like you said, the artwork, absolutely beautiful. And and that was it. So it was the idea of the theme, the caskets, and just the other thing I should say about his prototype was he had these caskets, people were shaking them, and that was just it. Just the joy of having almost a toy in your hand, something tactile to shake, to play with. It's just fun, and I wanted to develop that and bring it to a much bigger audience. And well, yeah, hopefully I did with the base game, and then obviously the expansions to take that even further.
Well, I mean, it's got dice, it's got tactile things you can play with. I mean, what's there not to love? Like, that sounds just awesome.
It's
oh yeah,
colorful.
and I should also. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we have to get colorful. So when we got the artists, we went for Mexican artists. We said we want it to represent the culture, want it to represent that celebration feeling, and they did such a fantastic job. One other thing I should say is, of course, the pun. Day of the Dead is just that's a great name. I think James came up with that just for his prototype. I would imagine. I think that might have been the first thing he came up with, and it was like, yeah, okay, we're keeping the pun definitely.
Yeah, no, that is great, and it also describes the game a bit. You're playing Day of the Dead game and with dice, so you just in the name you know what you're getting into. So there's expansion that's coming out. What does it add or change to the base game to expand on it?
Yeah.
Make it better.
So there are two expansions coming out. There's the first expansion is called the Offender variant, and this is because when we did the initial Kickstarter, a lot of people asked for solo modes, and the base game, you couldn't really have a solo mode in there. And so after it was released, I got talking to James. We were trying to think of how we could make something a bit more cerebral, something where maybe there could be a solo mode, a bit more thinky. And we designed this expansion. The idea was to design an expansion which we could give out as a free print and play. So like a kind of reward after we'd sent all the rewards out to everyone, all the game, we could say, there's another reward. Here's a free print and play using the components. And we did so, and it became this kind of dice drafting game where you had to fill up an Altar de Muertos with the offerings. So again, we're still taking even more about the Day of the Dead to incorporate in it. And this grew and evolved, and we play tested it, and we put it out, and we got some feedback and evolved it some more. And it basically grew into this, I call it a variant because it takes the base game and it changes it significantly into something a lot more thinky. So it's random input instead of random output. So in the base game, you roll the dice, and then whatever happens with those dice, that's what happens. That's the result. With this variant, it's you roll the dice, but then you choose which of those dice you want, and everybody chooses. And so for those people who want a lot more control in their game, this variant, it's for them really. And people who want solo modes, this variant's for them, while still, being all about Dia de Muertos. So that's number one. Number two is called the Cholo expansion, about the Cholo dog, the Mexican hairless dog. A very cute dog. I've looked at enough photos when going through the design of this. And the idea with this is to take the base game and then just add more of what people love about it. So this adds more ways to manipulate dice. You've got a tiny little, I say tiny, it's actually quite chunky, little Cholo dog meeple, and use that to guide people to choose certain caskets. It's got alternative casket boards. It's got more custom dice. And so really it's an expansion for those people who they're like, love the base game. We just want more, more of that shaking of caskets, more of that dice manipulation, more options, more ways to change the setup. So it's got everything. If you like the game, this expansion, it takes it and says, yeah, we're going to give you more of that.
Oh, lovely. Because it just adds to the replayability then also. For someone who really loves the game and has been playing it a bunch, you just add some little change ups to also make it probably more challenging. Then, it's not the same, hey, this is a card I have and here's what I do every time I get this. So very cool.
Thank you.
What I like with expansions is when it just adds on a little bit more that way to the game.
So if you're like me and not as cool as Justin, who backed this game originally, and you're wanting to get the core game, are you going to be able to do that as part of this project that's coming out? What other goodies are we going to be kind of that you can tell us about that we're going to also be able to maybe get to add on to the game? Is there anything else that you're going to be trying to accomplish with this project to really enhance Die of the Dead?
So with this, you're going to be able to get the base game, doing the base game and the expansions. We're keeping it simple because last time when we crowdfunded this originally, it was a really good success. Really happy with how it did. And then the shipping crisis and COVID kind of just slammed into it. And I remember afterwards us saying we made enough money from this game to do a second print run, but not enough money to actually ship it anywhere. So this is kind of saying, because we had loads of people getting in touch with us afterwards saying, can I get a copy? Can we get a copy? We printed an additional 500, and we just sold out straight away. So with this, really, it's an opportunity for those people who wanted to get a copy to finally get a copy of the game. Then, obviously, if you order the expansions at the same time, we're going to try and discount that as much as possible. So, to really reward, because I do think when you do any kind of crowdfunding, you want to have a reward for saying, I'm going to play this, without seeing lots of people get finished copies. And so we have to reward that in some way. We should try and do it by making it, as much of a deal as possible. I'd say thank you to those people. I'm not going to I've tried before going down the whole, let's do these exclusives. And I find that often it's a big headache. And then some people, if they can't get them, they get a bit angry. And I do also kind of think if you don't back the Kickstarter, you should still be able to have the full experience. You might pay more for it, but you still get that full experience. And I want everyone to have that. So definitely if you want to have the base game and the expansions, please do support us. But if you miss it, then hopefully, we sold out last time. Hopefully we'll print enough. So, obviously selling out's brilliant, but we don't want anyone to be disappointed. All I'd say is to guarantee yourself a copy, that's what we're offering, I suppose, with the Kickstarter.
Hey, that's absolutely fair. And you know what? I think that's actually admirable. A lot of companies that we've been talking to, a lot of publishers we've been talking to, it goes either way. And we actually got asked in our last interview whether we thought you should do exclusives as part of a Kickstarter. And I certainly see the attraction and the marketing towards that. But it's, in something like this, where this might be your only chance to get this game. I know you're going to, do everything you can to print extras and whatnot, but this is really, for a lot of these small publishers and smaller games that are, independent, this is your only opportunity to get the game, or maybe your only opportunity to get the game, unless it somehow falls on the secondhand market or something for bloated prices. So, yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you back this. It's definitely going to be something where, guess what? Justin talked me up so much on this. This will be a day one back for us now this time too. So,
oh, thank you.
When is it going to be launching on Kickstarter?
27th of October.
October 27th. Okay.
October 27th. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. Says I am putting that on the calendar right now.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's
I was going to say, it's trying to do the maths now. How many days is it? So it's 6 days before Dia de Muertos, so 2nd November. So, we really, it's something we've been working on expansions for a long time. And I've been working on making sure Damask gets manufactured, shipped to a high standard over the summer. But I wanted to get this out before Dia de Muertos, really try and say to people, look, we've got a game which is so perfectly themed around this celebration. Have a look at it, get involved.
Yes, no, it definitely is. So this is your big focus right now, is getting this Kickstarter that's coming out. You've mentioned a couple other games that Radical 8 Games has put out, such as Damsk, which I just pulled up as we were talking. Again, beautiful colors with it. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
And then I noticed there's a couple, like at least one other game on your website. So can you tell us a little bit about these other games if people are interested in just finding out more about what you do?
Absolutely. So Damask is designed by Barbara Burford, and it's a first design. It's a game about sewing these silk patterns. Again, I think visually incredibly striking. I saw this one at it was a designer publisher meetup at the UK Games Expo, where designers get the chance to pitch these games. And I thought, you know what, that could be a really successful game. I think it's got really simple mechanics to it, or I think simple might be the wrong word, but it's very straightforward. It's one of those games where your options, you've got a couple, but what they actually mean is really deep. Anybody can play it, and you can have some people puzzling there for a long time, trying to work out the best move, or just play in a matter of, just do whatever they feel is right. It's all about matching these silk patterns, getting these cubes, essentially resources to make these silk patterns. But we incorporated a spinning wheel. We thought, if we're sewing silk, let's get a spinning wheel in there, with a really nice mechanic about how you actually select the silk for your patterns using the spinning wheel. I'm not going to go through the rules here, but really proud of that. It's just a really nice game to play, really easy to learn, but really deep when you actually get into the mechanics of it, and just very pretty to look at. Then before that was Die of the Dead. Before that, there's a card game called Forks, which is just a really, so I've got a copy here, really small box card game. Just one of those ones, kind of like, I'm trying to think of the word, same way to say Six Nimt or something like that. Just something you can carry in your pocket, take to a pub, and just play it. For a couple of games, waiting for a round, that type of thing. It's a fiendishly brutal game. Called it Forks, named after forking in chess, where you've got, essentially, you're being attacked from both sides, and you're going to lose one way or the other, because that's the kind of game it is. That one is, we did a Kickstarter for that, and we've got some leftovers. However, I made the incredibly foolish decision to hand make all the boxes. So I've got loads of cards left and no boxes. I've recently recanted that decision and just ordered somebody else to make the boxes for me because it was taking me ages. That's what we've got at Radical 8 Games as well. There are other games which have been involved in the design of, but those are the ones from our company.
One of the things we find very interesting and really fascinating is trying to understand what motivates people to get into this crazy world of game design and publishing. Because I'll be honest, like I'm like every avid gamer out there today, that I have glories of and ideas of, hey, I could design a game and publish my own game, and then I start really looking at the amount of work and money and effort you have to put into it to and with the risk of not being successful. So what really got you into this world and made you want to start Radical 8 Games and do all of the things you're doing now?
So designing games is one of those things which I just always assume that other people love to do, and I'm always surprised when someone who enjoys playing games doesn't also want to design them, because to me, designing, and a lot of people out there will agree, that's almost the fun part when it comes to working on games. So, like a lot of people, I designed a whole bunch of games. I pitched them to publishers, made prototypes and everything else. And you look at my shelf earlier behind me. I think the bottom half of that is just loads of prototypes for previously pitched games and the like. Then a few years ago, one of my games actually got published. It got picked up, and I went along to the company just to see what they were doing, really, to see what the process was like. And whilst I was there, I just thought, you know what, I reckon I could do this. And I think, sometimes when you visit somewhere, you think, oh, I've just made so many small mistakes. I wonder if I could do this better. And turns out I think I've just made lots of different mistakes instead. But yeah, when I saw them doing that, I thought I could do this. Let's start with a small card game. And I did. And you're right, it's a lot of work, but I think it's rewarding. And it's when people just come to you and they say, I really enjoyed your game. I played that game. It was a lot of fun. It's just a really nice feeling. And I don't think, and unless you're incredibly successful, it's not something you'd really do for the money. It is something you do just because it's a creative outlet with a really nice feeling attached to it. And yeah, that's why I do it. The publishing part is because I've worked out that, like I say, I've seen others do it, and I thought I could give it a go myself. But also I've seen friends with really good designs, which are sometimes bypassed. And I think actually no, they're let's give it a go. Let's see if I could publish them like I did with Dead. So yeah, that's what made me want to do it. We'll see if I still want to do it, as things go on. But hopefully.
Well, we're glad that you're doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I understand a lot of what you're talking about in when you talk about it from the podcaster world as well, or the content creator world as well. There's that first time when I was walking through a convention and somebody walked up to me and went, "I listened to your show. Oh my God, you guys!" This started gushing, and it's like, oh, okay, that's why we do this, right? And so
Yeah.
it's a little less risk to do the podcast thing, but it's awesome to see the games you're putting out are cool, and Justin can't say enough about Die of the Dead, so I'm really excited to get my hands on it and or get a play or two of it in. So
I was just wondering, because you are talking about, what's inspiring you to kind of keep going and do the publishing aspect of this. But what games have been inspirational or to you to help you with designing games? Is there anything that's like really pushed you into the design of them?
Yeah, I mean it's a funny one because I've realised that so my all-time favourite game is Agricola, absolutely number one for me, and it's kind of pushed me away from designing anything that approaches Agricola, because it's not that I wouldn't want to step on those toes. It's just that I think, oh, but that's such a good game. How would I go beyond it? And so I kind of end up going around, going almost to other ends where I think, oh, there are some games which, like Die of the Dead, it's a struggle for me to say what it's like because it is so unlike anything else that I have played at all. And so it is almost going to those polar opposites maybe of games that I like. I will say a game that has kind of inspired me recently is Blood on the Clock Tower. Been playing a lot of that, just in terms of thinking about social deduction games and what they can actually do. That's part of it, but also the sense of location in the game. And Blood on the Clock Tower, played it a lot in pubs, at conventions. The idea that people just go out for a wander, they go to other rooms. And some of that does speak to me in terms of what can you do in terms of, location, actual physical location in games. And again, that's something I've been working on. But yeah, I think a lot of it for me is it's not, I don't think I've ever consciously stolen a mechanic or thought, oh, that's really good, let's do it this way. Normally, I think, oh, that's a fantastic implementation of something. I don't need to design that. Someone's already designed that game and it's brilliant. I can leave that alone. Let's go and design this different game instead.
Sure. Sounds like you're working on improving other game mechanics that aren't perfected yet.
Yeah.
So
Or just
awesome.
bring in some new ones in.
Yes, exactly.
location based or area based. I'm starting to see an interesting trend in that direction with some games. Two rooms in the boom from a social deduction perspective, splitting, not overly complex, splitting people into the two different rooms. I've seen some escape room like games now that are starting to implement more of a dollhouse or some kind of mansion or something that's interactable. So yeah, no, it's I can see this kind of evolving. How can I take advantage of somebody's environment to really get them more immersed in the game, and go back to, I think, Suzanne, you had a birthday party when you were a kid, right? That you did whatever, dress up or whatever you did for that that made that immersive experience.
Yes, like kind of like Clue, live action
Yeah.
Clue game, Cluedo. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, it sounds so fun, doesn't it? And there's not much of it out there.
It was the only way I could get my friends when we were 17 or 18 years old to play a game with me. It was to have a theatrical aspect to it. So
that was back before board gaming and gaming in general was the cool thing, right? So yeah, absolutely. Just real quick, get back talking about the expansions here. So October 27th is when people can expect the Kickstarter to come out and that they can start backing the game and the expansions. from there, once the campaign, are you running what, a 30-day, 45-day campaign, 20-day? What's the campaign?
23 weeks, 21 days.
21 days, so 21-day campaign. After that, what does the rest of it look like? I know shipping and global getting things produced are huge factors, but what are you hoping to have this stuff in people's hands?
Absolutely. So campaign will end around mid-November. Then we're going to allow ourselves about a month. We always go to these campaigns print ready, but obviously, we send those files to the factory. Manufacturers, they're going to send stuff back and say, do you mean this, this, this? So we're allowing about a month for any amendments that need to be made. Then a sample copy to be sent normally takes a week. After that, we're then going to full-scale production. So hopefully around January. Obviously, got to bear in mind the New Year's holiday in China because that knocks factories out for a few weeks. I was going to say optimistic. On a realistic level, I'd hope that we would be shipping by March, April time. But I mean, one thing I pride myself on in our campaigns is the amount of clarity that we give to people and the updates where we say, this is where we're at. This is what's happening, and so far we've never actually been late. We've been early with all our deliveries. Crossing our fingers for Damas because that's currently being loaded onto ships. So hoping for the same thing. But yeah, the fact that we're entering this print ready does mean that we're looking at definitely less than a year in terms of turnaround.
That's awesome. That's great, and that's great to hear. So hopefully everything goes smoothly, and that's a super exciting time frame to get things returned and get the games into backers, so you can keep riding that excitement, right? And there's too often. I'm looking at you, lightest Cthulhu Wars from Peterson Games. Been waiting, I think, 3 or 4 years now since they ran those. At least it feels like since they ran the original campaign. So it's very exciting to be able to talk to someone too. That's hey, we've been here, we've done it before, we've got great consistency, and you know what, you're going to get your game while you're still riding that excitement from initially backing it.
Yeah.
So that's great news to hear. So, Mark, before we wrap things up here, is there anything else that we should know about Die of the Dead, this campaign that you got coming out that we didn't already mention or talk about?
I don't think so. Just for everyone, just to obviously please check out our Kickstarter page or look us up on Board Game Geek, that type of thing. But no, it should be. We've released this game before. People have loved it. We sold out almost straight away. So if you do want the game, please back us because we can't guarantee. Essentially, we can't guarantee that will be out. Like you said, we're a small company. We can't afford to do those massive print runs. We have to basically print what we've sold. So no. Otherwise, just thank you from me, I guess.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. For a link to the Kickstarter campaign and to the Radical 8 Games website, you can go to the blog post for this episode. It'll be in our show notes. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this, Mark. We really appreciate it, and best of luck on this campaign and all of your projects. Let's everyone make sure you run out there, back this game right away. We're really excited for it. We hope you are. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and get back to our main topic as part of the show right after this little break and word from our sponsors. Hey folks, this is the Conesy with the Most. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about Misty Mountain Games here in Madison, Wisconsin, where you can find CCGs, RPGs, board games, minis, paint and hobby supplies for all of your tabletop gaming experience and needs. If you can't find it online, give them a phone call or swing on by their brick and mortar store here on the east side of Madison. Don't worry, that is MistyMountainGames.com. Check them out today. We're back.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm scared.
Well, you should be, because we're about to review Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. This is a horror-themed game, so we picked this to review for this spooky month of October. Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein is from Plaid Hat Games. It plays 2 to 4 players. and from 90 to 180 minutes. In Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein, you're taking on the role of a scientist who is attempting to build a companion to Frankenstein's monster by gathering various body parts and hopefully bringing them to life. You are doing your grim work in the city of Paris while also being pursued by the captain of the police, who will start to catch on if you're doing any too illicit activities. This is a competitive worker placement game where you're going to need to carefully manage these gruesome resources that you collect, the organs and muscle and blood from various sources as they decompose, and you try to use the best quality materials to build your monster. There's a number of ways to go about getting the things you need to build your monster. You could be a decent person and just get cadavers from the Academy of Science for your work, or maybe get fresher bodies from the town square where they've recently executed a criminal. And if you're really not a good person, you can just go out and find your own bodies, get them on your own in the dark streets of Paris, which provide the freshest materials for you to use. Not only will that start to alert the captain of the police, it's also going to reduce your humanity level in this game. So besides managing the various resources you're using to build your monster, you also have to manage 3 separate dials, which represent your scientist that you're playing as. You have a humanity meter, which tracks how good or awful of a person you are, depending on if you've done more illicit activities to get body parts. You've got a reputation counter for your reputation in the community and with the Academy of Sciences, and also your expertise, which is a measure of how good you're getting at putting these monsters together and bringing them to life. And you need to raise that one up to a certain level to truly be successful in making your monster. I think that provides a pretty decent overview of what the game is. So let's jump into our review. We're going to talk about the components of this game first. So my impression with this game, almost all the components are very nice. They're cardboard tokens, nice cards. The game board is good, thick cardboard and has nice art on it. But the main sticking point for me is that the player boards, which have these little dials on them that you use to track those 3 different attributes, are just made out of a thin cardstock and just don't fit in with the quality of the rest of the components. And it's not good in comparison to the rest of the components in the game.
Yeah, I agree that part makes you wonder, if you were a heavy player of this game, how long the components would really hold up. We enjoy this game, or I enjoy this game. It's a nice heavy Euro game, but it doesn't hit the table as frequently as some other games. So I guess I recognize that those are, they're an type of item for this game with the reviewing it. But what I like is that you have your own player board, so you're doing your thing over there, and then you have the main city board, so you're going to that. It kind of keeps you a little separate from the other players. And so I guess it's components that there's a main board and a player board. And that's just something I really enjoy with games, because for myself, I need to mess around with my resources and pick them up and just have that tactile thing. And if they're on the main board, I can't do that because that is frowned upon by the other players. So I get the components aren't the best, but it didn't detract from the game for me that much.
One of the things I really do like about the player board is the section where you build your monster. So there is this big wooden table where you literally have to assemble the body parts of your monster, and there are cardboard tokens to represent the head and the torso and the arms and the legs of your creature. And you have to start by laying down just sort of a a body part that's just muscle and bone, and then eventually put skin on top of that. So you flip the token over. So for some of the game, you're going to have a half assembled monster with like a sort of muscle head and torso, and you'll have one arm flipped over to like the skin side, and it's really I think satisfying, like thematically, and that's one of my favorite components with it. Um,
Yes,
I
that
like that a lot.
that definitely adds to the theme of it because you are seeing your creation kind of be put together, and it's gory looking,
Yeah.
just as if you had a dead person on a table in your house, which I hope no one that's listening does right now. But no one tries to actually assemble this. But then you get some skin somewhere, and then you can flip it, put it over the arm, so you can flip that over, and it just really adds and immerses you in the theme, the building of this there. So yes, it just pulls in this horror theme and immerses you in that, and makes you wish you well, no, it does not make me wish I could build one of these guys. It's just really kind of cool to be doing it in a fantasy setting.
Do you have
So,
any thoughts on components, Ben, or should we
Components are
move
adequate.
on?
They are. I don't think they blow me away, but they are like everything else of this game, gruesome in their depiction of art, dark,
Yeah.
creepy, and a little bit scary. It's so fitting to this game, but it's definitely not something that you should leave out with your young kids in the house.
That's a good point. It is pretty gruesome, and there are depictions of dead people and bodies, and definitely more of
Mommy,
an
I see
adult theme
dead
there for
people.
sure.
No,
Yeah.
Daddy's just playing his game. It's okay.
Yeah. As you say this, I realize I've got some of this game set up in my room on the back table, and now I'm thinking about maybe I should put that away. But let's move on to our next category here and talk about the rule book and the kind of ease of teaching this game.
There is no ease of
I'll
teaching
say
this
that
game.
this is
We just started
yeah,
off right there.
you go.
Done.
That sums it up.
It's not an easy
yeah.
teach.
I will just say quick that the game is a heavy Euro game with worker placement. As Ben said, the rules are intricate. There's a lot going on, and I think for me, it's not over the top of what I would be willing to sit down and learn to play a game, but I could see that being an issue for some people.
It's definitely a thinker trying to learn how to play it for the
Well, I
first time.
guarantee this
So
is one of those games where I handed Suzanne the rule book and I sat down and watched a video because after about a paragraph, I was like, okay, I'm bored. This is I just cannot absorb this rule book fast enough. Here you go. I'm watching a video. It is that said, flipping back and forth during the game, even back to the rule book, I found the rule book a bit clunky and not always answering what I wanted to answer. Maybe that's because I never actually read the rule book from cover to cover, but I find that well-written rule books, I can usually find what I want, even though I haven't read the rule book from cover to cover. In fact, I usually can find what I'm looking for in a rule book that's well-written faster than people who haven't or who actually read the rule book.
I'll also say there are player aids in the game that I think are crucial because some of the mechanics involving the decay of your resources and which ones you need to build a certain body part and the sort of end quality of that body part and the level that it is kind of complex, and you really need a simple summary of how that all works. I would probably have to look at that aid every single time to figure out what I need to do to build the left arm or whatever, and how good of a job I did at it. So let's talk about kind of overall gameplay. I think this game represents kind of a unique combination of elements. It is a Euro game with a horror theme and a Euro game hybrid, I guess, because there are some storytelling aspects and a little bit of, I guess, choose your own adventure mechanics in there too. There's a story that goes along with the game with the monster or Frankenstein's monster kind of doing things throughout the city and the captain of the police chasing him and around and trying to get wise to your activities as well. So that's unique, and I just don't think there's a ton of horror Euro games, which for me that's a cool point about this game. It's pretty unique.
It is absolutely immersive from the art and the depiction and the little narrative elements that you end up reading throughout the course of the game. It is probably my favorite part of the game. It fails at trying to get you to that full-blown horror, like, hey, I'm playing like I'm scared or I'm running or I'm terrified that Frankenstein's going to get me or anything like that. Like that element, it doesn't convey that true horror element, but where it doesn't do that, it excels at making you feel very wrong at doing things that make you do really well at this game. Well, I really need those fresh body parts, so maybe murdering somebody would be a good idea. Oh, but it's murdering somebody. Why? That's a bad idea. I really do enjoy that part of it. I mean, this is probably my favorite part of it is the theme and immersion. And that's it. I am not a big Frankenstein fan myself. Right away, I think that was something that I was like, I'm not sure, but like it really does feel and fit that theme and what it's trying to go towards.
Yes, it does. I definitely feel like it fits the Frankenstein theme that you're kind of trying to continue his work. And when I look at it that way, and not so much as the horror, but the experimentation of trying to create this human, it was very immersive for me that way, because this is something that you should not be creating. So you are going around and sneaking around and taking parts of what you can. And for me, that it was a very immersive game that way. And I just enjoyed it. I don't know what that says about me.
I was gonna say maybe more than horror, it just kind of creates an unsettling, dark atmosphere. There's no scares or anything like that, but it's just this dark board with, every building is dim and creepy looking. You guys have said it. The theme is the strongest aspect to this game.
This is one of those games, and we just got done doing a review for another game that's much lighter. But this is one of those games that it's definitely a mood and a theme and an immersive experience is really what I think you're trying to go for with this thing when you play it. This is the one where you want to dim the lights, not too dim, or you're not going to be able to see certain things or symbols in the game. You want to be able to read the text. So you got to be able to see the game. Dim the lights just a little bit. Put on your favorite horror movie soundtrack, or something of suitably creepy sounding in the background. Get together with 4 of your closest friends and run around Paris looking for parts to make your masterpiece.
In terms of the actual mechanics, I mean, the worker placement is fairly simple. Got your scientists and some assistants. You can go around, send them to the different parts of the city to do what you need to do and get your body parts and things like that. And then you bring those resources back to your player board. They decay slowly over time, and you're trying to kind of get the right amounts to build the body parts. I think it's pretty good as a Euro game in that aspect for the resource management. I think the decay mechanic is neat. Something I haven't seen in a lot of games, that the resources you gather just slowly get worse.
You know
There's
where
a
they
little bit
stole
of
that from, right?
enlighten me.
Dungeon Pets.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't know if they stole it from that or not, but that's another game.
No,
where
but
you
yeah, it does
decay,
have some.
you
Yeah, I didn't
decay
think of
your
that.
resources, you
Mhm.
decay your food.
Yeah, That's a good point. But I think it's pretty good as a Euro game. The actual mechanics. The most satisfying part is just finally getting all those resources you need and putting a big old, Frankenstein torso on your slab and uh, trying to charge it up with electricity.
Yeah, which if I remember right, that was a little bit of a random thing. Like you never
Mhm.
knew for sure if you were going to bring it alive, and that was like a big game winner, game loser kind of moment, right? If there are a couple players are really close at the end, if one person whiffs it on their like bring it alive check, then you might
Yeah,
not get another chance before another player wins the game or something like that, or ends it.
yeah.
Actually, it just ends it because it's still points or whatever. But it's a very interesting game.
Let's talk about the replayability of this one. My first instinct is that with the storytelling aspect, there's a pretty big stack of events and encounters that you can have. So as you play this game over multiple plays, I think probably you're going to see totally new events until you've played it a ton. Monster building aspect will be pretty much the same, but then you also have a character card that you get at the beginning of the game that represents, your character, your scientist, and they have special abilities or actions that they can do to kind of change how your game would play. So I think that adds some replayability there. What do you guys think?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in this game to change up your strategy on a per play basis. Do you want to play this game as a scavenger and creep around in the graveyards, or do you want to be a more feral and violent scientist who has no qualms about running around the streets of Paris and killing people for what you need, or are you just going to take are you so morally elite that you're going to make a bare bones effort at trying to create the monster while keeping them just happy enough by grabbing whatever scraps you can. I think that gives you a lot of options. Of course, there's a lot of mix and match in those different play styles as well. But I think those are things that you could try to push and see if you could achieve in future plays of this game that really give you a chance to try to strive and explore the game in different ways while still playing the same game. Of course, yes, the events, the narrative elements that come up are going to change from game to game. I, that wasn't. I don't think I was blown away from the events nearly as much as I thought I would. I didn't. They were cool little bits, but that piece didn't really capture me enough. It was more these exploring these different ways to discover and get the things that you needed, and how you would then have to counteract the consequences, because there are consequences
Mm.
and the game will start to punish you if you don't counter those consequences. You can't be a murderer and just murder, because you will get caught and there will be horrible consequences for you. So you have to go then take actions to draw the suspicion away from you, and things like that. So I find those aspects really really interesting and really make you want to explore this game again and again. Um, so I think there's probably a point where I might explore all of those different things out, but there's definitely ways to explore the game for a decent amount of replayability, and for a game that you're probably going to sit down and take a 2-ish hour play, or 2.5 hour, maybe 3 hour play, especially if you don't play it a lot. That's a really good amount of plays, because probably 10, 12, 15 plays of this game, and you're either in love with it, or you're like, okay, I'm ready for another game.
One thing I'll add in here too is the designer of this game responded to some criticism that he got when it initially released, that the play time was just too long. People were having these really long plays and sort of not not having a satisfying time doing what they're doing. And that coupled with some of the randomness at the end of the game, there were some legitimate complaints made about some of the mechanics there. So he actually went ahead and wrote a version of the rules that allows for a shorter game and some randomness mitigation with the charge up mechanic with these uses these dice that you roll, and if you roll the right thing, then your body part gets charged up and it's live, but you can always fail at that. So if you've played the long game and is a little too long for you, you can go to either, I believe, their website, or I'm sure on Board Game Geek, and get the short version of the rules printed out, and maybe that will be add to your replayability on this one.
Or we'll try to do our due diligence and make sure that a link to the short version play rules are available on the show notes blog post right along with where you can go ahead and download this episode off of our website.
Perfect.
I will make sure that they are there for everyone to access.
That said, yes, I think we've all played the long version, and there was a point during the game where it felt a little longish, and so exploring that shorter version sounds like it could definitely make the game a little bit more accessible, and certainly we'll get into our final thoughts on this game. That's what we should probably dive into. So here on Whisker Dice, we use a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would be Frankenstein taking your organs for another scientist to make his partner instead of you doing the construction. Of course, you could have it if we give a game a 10. This would be where your creation is perfect and lovely and beautiful. It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! All right, so Suzanne, what did you think of this game?
I am not sure how I can follow that, just saying, but I gave this game a 7. I did that mainly because of the theme and the immersiveness of that theme in here. I really felt like I was creating this monster and scavenging the city for parts and having to sneak around while doing it. And then, of course, you need to wait for a lightning storm to power it up and see if it works or not, and if you get struck by lightning. So it really worked for me that way. I enjoy the Frankenstein's monster story, and so this seemed like a good follow-up to that. So, Conzi, what were your thoughts on it?
So I'm going to caveat my score with, I think this game deserves a better rating than what I'm giving it, but I think I have some good supplementary reasons why I give this game the rating that I do. So for me, the game is a 6. I actually thought about making it a little lower, and the reason why wasn't that the game isn't good. The game is actually a really good game, and while it does feel a little longish, I think part of that time and the complexity of it makes it very hard to table. In addition, the theme can be off-putting for some players. Of course, when it comes to this time of year and it's spooky season, that's usually pretty easy to get away with and not have to worry about too much. But based on the amount of complexity that this game has, coupled with a longer playtime, it's hard to get in on like say a weeknight when some of the players might have to work the next day. It almost makes it where I have to fit it into some special, almost planned window to play it in. And then I always have to go, I have all of these very complex games that take the 2.5, 3 hours to play. Which one do I want to play tonight? Or which one's going to be more well received with the people I'm playing with? And almost always the answer is not this game. And because of that, I have to give it a slightly lower rating. It has, as much as I like the game, and I think it's probably deserving of a better ranking. For me, the game is a 6, and I wish I could find a way to get it to the table more. but I'm really not doing. It really doesn't excite me enough to do that exact thing. So that's why I give it the score I'm given.
Well, I'm going to fall right in between you guys. For me, it is a 6.5. There's not a lot else out there like this game. I very much like a horror theme, and I really like Euro games, and so for me, it's like a perfect combination. That said, this isn't the kind of game you're going to be able to bust out after Thanksgiving dinner with your family. Like, never. It's got a pretty small niche that it's in, and as Ben said, I think it just makes it difficult to get people to play. I really like the theme and the combination of the storytelling aspects with the resource management mechanics to play this on during Halloween season. I think it's great, but there's enough small flaws that it just keeps it from getting a higher rating than that for me. I do really enjoy it. So there's just a few small things that keep this game from truly coming alive.
That's our review of Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. So if you love Frankenstein, you love dark, gruesome games, this is probably the game for you. But if not, well, move along and make sure that you catch up on that. Thanks for listening and catching up with us while we talked through that review, but also when we talked with Mark and Radically Games and all of the cool things are coming in the Die of the Dead. Come on, there's that little dog meeple. That thing is so cute and awesome. It's worth backing the expansion and getting the game just for that. If it wasn't for the rest of the crazy cool art in that game. Of course, we also talked about the games we played at Gamehole Con this weekend. A lot of good games that were played, as well as the True Dungeon experiences, cartographers, and of course that Play It Distilled. So make sure if you haven't, catch our show notes on whiskodice.com. That's where you get all of our notes for all the images and everything else that we put up with this episode.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you leave a review of this show wherever your favorite place is to find podcasts. Oh, and by the way, give us a like on our Facebook page. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest while you're at it. If you haven't looked recently, make sure you catch up on the blog at whiskodice.com. Hey, Brian, what's that site?
Oh, darn, I forget. Justin, what's our website again?
Whiskodice.com.
That's right, it's whiskodice.com. And until next time, everyone, peace out.